On a lot of these platforms, they've been holding me back from really going in and exposing what I really want to expose.
That's R. Kelly's old cellmate. And now he finally speaking on what's really happening with the rapper locked up, because if you ain't heard, R. Kelly been going through it heavy.
R. Kelly was then removed against his will by guards from the prison and was not allowed to be treated. And they are saying that basically this could kill him because of the blood clots and the care that they are alleging he is not receiving.
We got all the info, and this situation got some major names involved, so let's break it down. The murder game, fighting for life inside. R. Kelly really going through it behind them walls, and most of what's been happening stayed low-key. That is, until June 2025, when his legal team, led by lawyer Bo Brinley, filed one of the wildest legal motions in a minute. Filed in federal court out in Chicago, the motion pushed for Kelly to be released to home detention right away. They claimed folks inside the Bureau of Prisons, along with some Aryan Brotherhood members, were supposedly in on a plot to take Kelly out for real.
These are people who seek to kill Mr. Kelly, rather than allow the corrupt criminal conduct of those who manufactured his convictions be exposed.
But this wasn't just lawyers pulling stunts to get their guy out the pen. The motion had a sworn statement from a key witness, someone who claimed they had first-hand knowledge of the plan to take Kelly out. The main figure in this whole thing is McQuill Glenn Stein, a terminally sick inmate who called himself a shot caller in the Aryan Brotherhood. According to Stein's sworn words, 3 officials from the Bureau of Prisons at the Federal Correctional Institution in Butner, North Carolina, offered him freedom if he handled Kelly.
Mr. Stein, in his declaration, has set forth the reason that was given. The reason is that Mr. Kelly was about to expose some facts that would be extremely inflammatory and damaging to the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice. And because of that, the Bureau of Prisons instructed Michael Glenn Stein to go to Butner and execute R. Kelly. And Mr. Stein made clear and gave us extraordinary detail when we spoke to Mr. Stein. We didn't use this until we actually went down and met with Mr. Stein for hours. And he told us in extraordinary detail that this is not the first instance, that this happens all the time, that the Aryan Brotherhood has been directed to commit murders and beatings at the behest of prison officials for years.
According to Kelly's lawyer Bo Brinley, Stein was told that Kelly was about to drop info that would make the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice look real bad. So the plan, based on what's being claimed, was to take Kelly out before he could let anything loose. But here's where it gets even more wild. Stein says he was offered a deal, and not just any deal, but one that was laid out real specific.
They have said that if he is to do this, he is a terminal cancer patient, he's going to die in the near future. That's a fact. And they have said that he will be transferred and he'll get the opportunity to walk away. And Michael Glenn Stein has a history of escaping from the Bureau of Prisons. He escaped previously. That's why he spent so long at the ADX Supermax in Florence. And all of a sudden, he was moved to this relatively low security facility at Butner and put near R. Kelly. That's a fact.
According to the claims, Stein, who's dying from cancer, was told he would be moved to another spot and given a chance to escape, letting him die free instead of locked up. Stein has a past of escaping from Bureau of Prisons spots and was once held at the ADX Supermax in Florence, which made the escape deal sound real. But something else happened. Instead of going through with the hit, Stein says he had a change of heart. He arrived at Kelly's unit in March 2025 and says Bob's staff told him to kill Kelly. But instead of doing it, Stein told Kelly about the plan. Kelly's lawyer said Stein revealed that this kind of thing, where staff tell gang members to do violence, happens a lot. He claimed the Aryan Brotherhood has been used to do murders and beatdowns for prison staff for years. If true, it shows deep corruption in the federal prison system that goes past Kelly's case. But the story didn't end with Stein saying no. Kelly's lawyers said that in June 2025, they found out about another Aryan Brotherhood member who was also told by staff to kill both Kelly and Stein.
That discussions have been had about poison in the food hall, about poison in the commissary. Discussions with Mr. Stein have been had about stabbings. These are the kinds of methods that have been discussed.
The allegations include specific methods that were allegedly discussed for carrying out the hit, including poisoning Kelly's food in the chow hall or commissary, and stabbings. Following the filing of the emergency motion, Kelly's situation allegedly became even more messed up. Kelly was reportedly moved to solitary confinement at FCI Butner, where his legal team claims he is unable to contact his family and is stuck in spider-infested conditions. Kelly's legal team argues that the solitary confinement is retaliation for exposing the alleged murder plot, rather than protection. Kelly is allegedly too scared to eat prison meals or use commissary goods, believing they may be poisoned. But the murder plot is just one part of a larger conspiracy that Kelly's legal team alleges. They claim the entire case against Kelly was built on constitutional violations and serious misconduct by the prosecution.
Well, let me say it this way. It's not allegedly having evidence. We do have evidence, and one piece of evidence we've already presented in the form of a signed declaration from Keyshawn Mogadamudi, Robert's former cellmate. And what he describes is having been solicited by prosecutors who are offering him a reduced sentence in exchange for stealing Mr. Kelly's privileged attorney-client correspondence.
According to Kelly's attorney, they have evidence that Kelly's former cellmate was recruited by prosecutors to steal attorney-client communications. The cellmate, Keshan Mogadamudi, provided a signed declaration stating that prison guards helped with the theft of these documents, which were copied by a Bureau of Prisons investigator and used in Kelly's trials. If this is true, it would represent a massive violation of Kelly's constitutional rights and could potentially throw out his conviction. Federal prosecutors have responded to these claims with dismissive language that shows how they view Kelly's accusations. On June 16, 2025, prosecutors brushed off Kelly's murder plot claims as wild, deeply unserious, and an insult to the harm suffered by his victims. They also described Kelly as a serial and unrepentant child molester and said, his claims make a joke out of what his victims went through. Prosecutors argue that putting Kelly in solitary confinement proves that prison officials are actually taking his safety concerns seriously, going against the idea of a murder plot. In a move that shows how desperate things have gotten for Kelly, his legal team has now made a direct appeal to President Donald Trump.
Absolutely. We're going to seek every opportunity to, one, make sure that Robert Kelly doesn't get killed, and number two, to see that he is freed based on what we believe to be and will prove to be a corrupt prosecution, the kind of which President Trump has promised to eradicate.
Kelly's attorneys have publicly appealed to President Donald Trump for a presidential pardon, arguing that Kelly is a victim of prosecutorial misconduct and that Trump, having dealt with legal heat himself, would understand Kelly's struggle. The appeal to Trump looks like a strategic move, pointing to Trump's recent decision to commute the sentence of gangster Disciples co-founder Larry Hoover while he was president, but no pardon has been granted so far, based on the latest reports. Kelly's case brings up bigger questions about the ongoing targeting of powerful black men in America. His former cellmate, Ronnie Bowe, draws lines between Kelly's case and other major high-profile situations.
Falling about what they doing to all blacks in America. They violating out of our human rights. R. Kelly case too. They violating that man human rights. Larry Hoover, like, they violating his human rights. He got another bogus case.
Despite the murder plot claims, Kelly's legal battles in the regular court system have mostly hit dead ends. The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld his conviction and 30-year sentence on February 12, 2025, shutting down arguments about weak evidence, biased jurors, and misuse of racketeering laws. Kelly's lawyer, Jennifer Bongine, plans to take it up with the U.S. Supreme Court, pointing to prosecutorial overreach. But the Supreme Court already refused to hear Kelly's appeal for the Chicago conviction. Back in October 2024, even with all the court fights and threats, Kelly has supposedly stayed creative while locked up. In a March 2025 podcast with inmate T from AANDP, he said he wrote 25 albums in prison, but then the story took a wild turn. Court records now say Kelly had a scary medical emergency, which his legal team says came from bad medication given to him by prison staff.
So in the emergency filing, they allege that R. Kelly was giving an additional dose of medication by prison staff. And they're alleging that because of that additional medication that he was instructed to take and that he actually took, he suffered a overdose. So they say that R. Kelly woke up allegedly on June 13th and he felt faint. He was dizzy. He started to see black spots. He got up and he fell. He crawled to the door of the cell and he lost consciousness then. At that point, he was placed on a gurney. He was taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital because they tried to take him to the hospital inside of or associated with the facility that he's in, but they couldn't help.
However, his physical and mental state seems to be going downhill. Kelly has diabetes and has been dealing with serious health problems, including blood clots in his legs, which he says came real close to taking him out.
Kelly allegedly has been asking for months to get some medical attention to a swollen leg. R. Kelly's legal team says that once he was taken to the hospital for this overdose situation, R. Kelly brought up the swollen leg, and they allege that doctors there then took a look at the swollen leg and they found blood clots in R. Kelly's right leg, allegedly, in his left leg, in his lungs, allegedly. And R. Kelly's legal team is saying that R. Kelly was then told he should stay 7 days in that hospital for surgery, and then it would be an additional 2 weeks because of whatever care they were going to need to give him. But his legal team alleges that once the prison was contacted, R. Kelly was then removed against his will by guards from the prison and was not allowed to be treated. And they are saying that basically this could kill him because of the blood clots and the care that they are alleging he is not receiving.
And while the overdose raised big questions, it's the voices coming from inside the prison, especially one cellmate, that are blowing the whole thing wide open. His former bunkie stories take this whole mess to another level. Cellmates dropping tea and spilling industry secrets. What we're about to break down is next level. We're talking explosive testimony from Kelly's old cellmate, secrets that supposedly reach the top of the music game, and real talk about what really goes down when someone who knows too much becomes a problem for some real powerful players.
Well, on the way to the outside hospital, his team alleges that it was overheard someone in the ambulance from the hospital say this is going to open a whole new can of worms. R. Kelly's legal team then alleges that once he got to the hospital, it was then revealed that he had been giving an overdose quantity of medicine.
The main source for a lot of what we're about to lay out comes from a dude named Ronnie Bowe, a former federal inmate who spent serious time locked up with R. Kelly and later wrote a book based on their conversations. But before we jump into what he claims, let's keep it 100th. These are allegations and personal accounts that paint a picture of deep corruption and conspiracy at the highest levels. Some parts are disputed, some can't be proven, but every piece deserves to be heard because it shines a light on a system that might be more crooked than anyone ever thought. Ronnie Bowe, real name Ronnie Bowe Williams, is a former federal inmate who now calls himself an author and the CEO of Grind Mode Inc. But what makes him key to this story is that he shared time with R. Kelly at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Chicago and claims their talks exposed dark truths about the music game and Kelly's downfall.
Yeah, we was never roommates. We was on the same unit for a period of time, but I was there. I came there in MCC Chicago, June 24th, 2019. And I think he came either in July or August. It was like a month or two, no longer than 3 months after I came.
But here's where it gets real interesting. Bowe claims he played a major role in getting Kelly transferred from protective custody to general population.
It was like, man, let's get, and I hollered at everybody, let's get Kels up here. So they sent the word to him, and Kels from there, he petitioned, he asked his lawyer, like, man, put that paperwork in and get me up out this I want to go on general population.
According to Bowe, he had already built ties with shot callers from different prison crews, the Gangster Disciples, Latin Kings, Blackstones, and they all agreed Kelly could slide into general pop bay. That's a big deal, because it means some of the most powerful dudes in the feds gave him a pass and backed his safety. But the real juice comes from what Bowe says Kelly shared with him during those talks. And these weren't just regular jailhouse chats. We're talking serious claims about music industry setups, stolen catalogs, and being hunted by some heavy hitters. One of the wildest claims Bowe drops is tied to Kelly's entire music catalog.
In one of your interviews, you said that you asked R. Kelly, or he told you, either one, that it was $1.2 billion, that he found out that his catalog was worth $1.2 billion. And once he started trying to figure out how he can get, the payments for that or whatever, that's when he said things kind of turned up on him.
According to Bowe, Kelly found out his music catalog was sitting at a crazy $1.2 billion. But here's the wild part. Even with all that value, Kelly was hurting for cash and had to keep hitting the road nonstop just to keep the lights on.
Man, catalog worth $1.2 billion. So technically they supposed to announced him as a billionaire before they announced Jay-Z as a billionaire. And when he realized that, he like, damn, I'm as big as Mike now. Like, yeah. And like, believe it or not, he wasn't making no money unless he went on tour and did a show. He had to do shows and go on tour to survive.
This raises some real questions about who was controlling Kelly's money and why someone with $1 billion catalog was out here living check to check. According to Bowe's version of events, when Kelly started looking into where his money was going and tried to claim what was his, that's when the legal pressure really kicked in. But maybe the most controversial part of it all involves Jay-Z. Bowe says that based on their talks, the beef between Kelly and Jay runs way deeper than just that public business fallout everyone knows about.
You know what I'm saying? So with that not happening, of course, because Pac ended up passing away, did R. Kelly go into detail on how him and Jay ended up working together and doing the best of both worlds?
You asked that at the perfect time, because that's kind of where this come from. Like, see, Jay-Z, he knew that Pac and R. Kelly was supposed to do best of both worlds together.
The story Bo shares is that Kelly was first supposed to drop Best of Both Worlds with Tupac, but after Pac got killed, Jay-Z stepped in and took the spot. According to Bo, Jay saw that move as his shot to level up with Biggie and Pac, but from what's being told, the whole collab didn't play out the way Jay-Z was really hoping it would.
And then those negative emotions that Jay had, jealousy or whatever you want to call it, it f***ed up the tour, because, you know, R. Kelly said that basically when they went to Madison Square Garden earlier that day, you know, he was getting random death threats.
According to Bo's version of Kelly's story, Kelly was getting death threats before their Madison Square Garden show, and when he hit the stage, he saw dudes in the crowd throwing threatening signs. Kelly thought Jay-Z was behind it, so he dipped off stage, and that's when Jay's crew hit him with pepper spray. But it runs deeper. Bo claims Kelly believed Jay-Z helped fund the surviving R. Kelly doc through his ex, Dream Hampton, who just happened to be the executive producer.
Dream Hampton is the executive producer of Surviving R. Kelly. You know, that's her project, and that's Jay-Z ex-girlfriend, and you know, he funded mostly all of her projects, if not all.
If this is true, that means one of the biggest players in the music game purposely backed a documentary meant to take down Kelly's whole name and career. But Bo's claims don't end with Jay-Z. He says there's a system set up to blacklist artists who refuse to go along with certain industry agendas.
I feel like R. Kelly was eventually blacklisted. I feel like I'm blacklisted. I feel like there's many other artists who probably got way more talent than most of the artists we hear in the industry is blacklisted.
Bo talks about how he got blocked from major platforms, saying that when he tried to book an interview with The Breakfast Club, they told him iHeart wouldn't allow it because of the buzz around his name. He believes powerful folks like Jay-Z have the pull to blacklist artists and keep them out the spotlight. This paints a picture of an industry where talent ain't enough, and where you've got to play by certain rules and stay loyal to certain people if you want to shine instead of fade. While Kelly was behind bars, he had to deal with real threats. In 2020, while locked up at Chicago's Metropolitan Correctional Center, Kelly got jumped by another inmate. The dude who attacked him was Jeremiah Shane Farmer, a Latin Kings member, doing life, but according to Bo, there was way more behind that beatdown than what people saw on the surface.
But right in the midst of that, like 3 days in a row, was coming up there protesting on R. Kelly's behalf. So in the feds, they got this rule, like if they protesting around a building, we got to do emergency lockdown.
Bo says Kelly's supporters had been outside the prison protesting for 3 straight days, and that led to lockdowns stopping inmates from using phones or getting other perks. That had dudes inside real frustrated, and a lot of them blamed Kelly for the whole mess. But Bo also points out that Farmer later told the media the government put him up to it. That raises some real shady questions about whether the attack was actually planned by the feds, not just some random prison beef. What makes Bo's story even more solid is that he ain't just saying this stuff with no backup. He wrote a book breaking it all down and filed lawsuits against federal agents, including one where he sued D-Agent Timothy P. Gray and got a settlement. That gives him some weight as someone who's taken on the system, and one. Bo also talks about Kelly as someone who stayed solid and wouldn't fold on his values, even when doing so could have helped his career.
Because where we come from, like whether you was with a gang or not, we live by certain principles and codes. And in that industry, is a lot of that go on. Yeah. Like when you talk about selling your soul and that really go on. You know what I mean? Or this executive, you got this rich executive in the industry, and he could fuck over your career. He might want to play with your or something. He might want to play with your or something. But where we come from, it's like, what? And that's the type of R. Kelly was. R. Kelly told Quincy Jones, man, because of the God I serve, I can't get down like that.
According to Bo, Kelly turned down advances from powerful industry figures like Quincy Jones, which may have hurt his chances and made him enemies in a business where such compromises are allegedly expected. The picture painted by these cellmate revelations is of an industry built on corruption where artists are controlled through blackmail, financial manipulation, and, when needed, legal persecution. But if these claims are real, they're just scratching the surface. The real question isn't just what happened to R. Kelly in jail, it's whether his situation is part of a bigger pattern of silencing people who know too much about how the entertainment world really operates behind closed doors. But to really get why R. Kelly became such a target inside and out the system, we gotta rewind the clock and look at how this whole thing first started. How R. Kelly ended up behind bars. We want to know what's really going down with Kelly behind the wall. We gotta go back to where all this madness first popped off. See, the allegations against Kelly ain't new. This drama been bubbling since way back in the day. In 1994, when Kelly was 27, he went and married 15-year-old Olia in a secret Chicago ceremony. Now that's already wild, but it gets worse. They had to fake her ID to make it look like she was 18. Her parents shut the whole thing down and got it annulled in 95. Turns out someone later testified that Kelly's people paid $500 to get a fake ID for baby girl, probably because they thought she might be pregnant. But that was just the start of the mess. Through the late 90s and early 2000s, mad women started coming forward. Tiffany Hawkins, Tracy Sampson, and more, claiming Kelly was doing shady things with minors, and dude was cutting checks left and right to keep them quiet. The pattern was crystal clear, but Kelly's fame and money shielded him from real consequences. The first time the law seriously came for him was in 2002, when he got hit with 21 counts of child pornography after a disturbing video came out showing him doing unspeakable things to what looked like a 14-year-old girl. You'd think it'd be game over with evidence like that, but nah. In 2008, Kelly beat all 21 charges. The alleged victim and her fam wouldn't testify, and the jury wasn't fully convinced the girl in the video was underage. For over a decade after that, Kelly moved like he was untouchable, still making music, touring, living like a king. But underneath it all, investigative journalists like Jim Derogatis were slowly building a case that would eventually bring his whole empire crashing down. Things really flipped in 2017, when BuzzFeed dropped a bombshell report accusing Kelly of running a cult, keeping women locked up and controlling every part of their lives. The article said Kelly took their phones, stopped them from seeing family, and treated them like prisoners. That's when the hashtag #MuteRKelly movement really started gaining steam, with folks calling for boycotts of his music. But the knockout blow came in 2019 with Lifetime Surviving R. Kelly documentary. That joint featured tons of women, including his ex-wife Andrea and girls like Gerhanda Pace, sharing stories of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. The doc hit hard. RCA Records dropped Kelly, and artists like Lady Gaga and Celine Dion pulled their collabs with him from streaming. Within months of that documentary airing, the walls started closing in quick. In February 2019, Cook County charged Kelly with 10 counts of aggravated criminal abuse involving 4 females, 3 of them minors, aged 13 to 16. But those state charges were just the warm-up. In July 2019, the feds brought the real hit: 18 federal counts, including child exploitation, child pornography, trafficking, kidnapping, forced labor, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. They locked Kelly up without bail, calling him a flight risk and a danger to the community. And the federal charges were devastating. In September 2021, after a 6-week trial in Brooklyn, a federal jury found Kelly guilty on all 9 counts, 1 racketeering charge and 8 Mon Act violations. Prosecutors painted Kelly as the leader of a criminal organization that operated for nearly 3 decades. They said he used managers, bodyguards, and assistants to help him recruit and abuse girls, boys, and women for years. 11 victims, including Aaliyah, came forward and testified about the physical and psychological abuse they endured, most of it while they were still minors. They talked about how Kelly enforced strict rules, calling him daddy, not being able to move freely, and not even being allowed to look at other men. If you broke the rules, you got punished with beatings and were forced to do things, some of which he recorded. On June 29, 2022, Judge Ann Donnelly sentenced Kelly to 30 years in prison, saying his behavior showed violence, cruelty, and control, and that he used his fame to prey on vulnerable people. 7 survivors stood in court and told their stories about how he ruined their lives, while Kelly sat there showing zero remorse. But the punishment wasn't over yet. In September 2022, a federal jury in Chicago found Kelly guilty on 6 out of 13 charges: 3 counts of creating child pornography and 3 counts of enticing minors to have sex. This trial focused on video evidence showing Kelly abusing his 14-year-old goddaughter, referred to as Jane, in court. Jane testified herself, confirming she was the girl in those videos and saying Kelly abused her hundreds of times before she turned 18. In February 2023, Judge Harry Linenweber hit Kelly with another 20 years, 19 of those to run alongside the New York sentence, and 1 year stacked on top, bringing the total to 31 years. The man who once rocked stages around the world and lived in luxury is now fighting to survive under a whole new kind of spotlight, one where federal agents, white supremacist gangs, and powerful industry figures are allegedly working to keep him quiet forever. As of the most recent reports, Kelly remains in solitary confinement at FCI Butner Medium I, with no decision yet on his emergency legal motion. A hearing was scheduled for June 20, 2025, before U.S. District Judge Martha Packeld, but the focus seems to be whether the Chicago court even has jurisdiction over Kelly's claim, since he's locked up in North Carolina. Kelly isn't scheduled for release until December 2045, when he'll be 78 years old. If he survives that long given the claims of death threats and his declining health, that's a big if. The question that still hangs in the air is whether the full truth about what really happened to R. Kelly behind bars will ever come out, with powerful forces allegedly working to silence him, and Kelly possibly facing a life sentence. The secrets he claims to hold might die with him. The so-called king of R&B may have fallen from grace, but the shockwaves from his downfall are still echoing through the halls of power, and they might keep echoing for years to come. This is no longer just one man's story. It's about the whole system that allegedly preys on people who know too much, and what happens when the streets collide with the highest levels of government and industry corruption. If you liked this video, check out more just like it by clicking one of the suggested videos on your screen now.